Why? Because both Sean Payton and Pete Carroll, Hall of Fame level coaches, moved off him. And there were just too many teammates that would say bad things. And I'm like, I think Russ is getting into Russ. A little too into Russ, which I'm not a fan of as a quarterback. But I was looking at this. So Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, same roster. Look at the gap between the two. With Russell, they average 30 a game. Fields, 20. 380 yards to 290. Yards per play, another yard per play. So, I mean, by the way, 25 points, 4 straight weeks. Number 3 scoring offense over the last month. He has the 3rd highest passer rating in the league. Russell Wilson does at 105. And in the 4th quarter this year, in the 4th quarter, the money quarter, Russ is completing almost 80% of his passes. So, yeah, I moved off him. But I got to be honest. Sometimes you get humbled. And Albert Breer was on our show a couple days ago, and I mean, Russ was getting into Russ, but then this happened.
I think there was a period in Russell's career when he was in Denver when he wanted to be something different than that, and he's come off of it. And I think that's a huge credit to Russell, that I'm willing now to go back to what I was in Seattle. I'm willing to really embrace playing the way that I was playing in Seattle. It's basically having the humility to say I was wrong, and maybe the coaches in Seattle who deployed me a certain way were right. And so I think that those things have come together too.
He didn't get defensive. He didn't lash out. He didn't poison the locker room. Russell Wilson put his head down and went to work. It's what he's done his whole career. You could knock him sometimes for being too adult, that he doesn't connect with younger teammates. He's like practices high-fiving. I mean, he is so committed and obsessed. But a lot of guys would have bailed. He never did. Never pouted, got humble. But don't kid yourself. The numbers between Russ and Justin Fields, there is a massive gap. Like if you're in Vegas, that's a 10-point difference in quarterbacks.
Yeah. I really love this story, honestly, for so many different reasons. And I assure you, it's not just because I kept saying, play Russ. Russ should be the starter. The Steelers could be a contender with Russ. And so I swear I'm not doing like receipt keeping or doing any type of victory lap. But it's obviously no surprise this team is better with Russ versus Justin Fields. And I have also talked about Russ's locker room issues, leadership issues, whatever it may be. And anytime I made those videos, I'm trying to get back to his numbers. And this is not about Justin Fields. I don't want to talk about Justin Fields. This is all about Russ, for the record. But it's one of those things where when I kind of talked about some of his leadership issues and stuff like that, a lot of people, and within more of that community, more than I am, they kind of emphasize that people don't like Russ because he is a more clean-cut guy, family guy in that regard, and so they kind of take issue with that. And I think there's probably some truth to that to a degree, but I don't think that's 100% the truth, because people obviously roll with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, so it's not always just about that. You don't always have to do all the same things as the other people around you to be able to connect with them. Being able to connect with other players is just people in general is something that is so much. It's just being able to speak their language. It's something that I'm actually good at, mainly because of my background in being I used to be a therapist, and especially specifically in a men's drug and alcohol rehab facility, where I'm literally working with people from truly all over with such insanely different backgrounds. Some of the greatest people you ever meet, and some of the worst human beings you could ever meet. And that's just the reality of the situation. People who are absolutely loaded, and people who have never had more than 50 cents in their pocket. And yet I have the ability, and again, this isn't me like trying to toot my own horn, but I have the ability to connect with those people no matter who I'm talking to. I can hang out with ultra rich people, and people will think like, oh, I'm ultra rich too. I can hang out with people who are ultra poor, and they'll be like, oh man, you know what it's like. And it's because I do. I have the feelings. I mean, I've never been ultra rich, but it's just the way how my own mind works, and how my own natural ability to connect with. But again, it's very much not only my training, but also just my own natural ability, who I am as a person. And I recognize that not all people have that ability. Not all people have the ability to connect. They don't have that what they often will call like social intelligence. And it's just one of those things that I think maybe to a degree Russ maybe has lacked a little bit, and that's kind of hurt his reputation and the way how other people perceive Russ in general. And I think when you get all the money and then you marry a celebrity and all of that type of stuff, and you're the quarterback, it's a combination between people feeling like you're a little bit disconnected. I think some of it also probably did go to Russ's head, which is what Albert Breer was essentially saying. He wanted to do something that was beyond him. But then again, he has the intelligence. He has, hopefully, the camp around him where they can then be like, hey, you need to change. This is obviously not working for you. And now they're going back to what worked with him. But again, we know other players kind of talked about this, how like you couldn't even text Russ and you had to like make an appointment and like all of those types of things. And so I get why that would rub players the wrong way, because at the end of the day, players want to feel like you're kind of on similar levels. Every player is going to recognize who the star player is, who's the player that makes the most amount of money, all of that type of stuff. They're not dumb to it. You know it since if you're playing sports at the age of like 7. Right? I mean, seriously, you recognize, okay, that's Johnny. He's obviously the best player. And when you're younger, you get maybe a little upset by it. You're like, I'm going to be better than Johnny. No, Johnny's not the best. And then as you get older and older and older, you're like, well, Johnny continues to be the best. He obviously is the best. And you got to struggle with it. And you try your best to get as good as you can. But you recognize that there are different levels to it. And that's why it all depends on how do these other players handle it. And it just seems to me that Russ really kind of did go a little bit back and forth. He kind of had his own journey with regards to it, but to deny his ability to play football, right? That's not fair. If we want to unpack his ability to be a leader and connect with other players, I think that's totally fair game. But I think we also need to recognize that it is also in a lot of ways no different than someone being able to run really fast versus not as fast. I was going to give specific numbers, but it doesn't even matter. Right? Like it's a skill set that not only can you work on, but you're also born with. And I, for the most part, especially the older I get, the more forgiving I am of other people who don't have the ability to connect with other people on deeper levels or have the ability to relate to other people, communicate as efficiently as well. Because there is a robotic and a fakeness to Russ. But I think that's like not even like on purpose. It's just like how he processes the world. Honestly, I think a lot of it is probably his own insecurity to a degree. A lot of people who you feel are fake, a lot of times it's because of their own insecurity and they're just kind of reacting and doing and speaking how they think other people want them to. Like it can get really messy if we really dig into the psychology of it all. And so if anything, I'm just kind of more forgiving of it rather than like, oh, this guy thinks he's the best or he's elite or whatnot. So that's why I always thought going to Pittsburgh was going to be a great situation for him, because Mike Tomlin's the exact opposite. Mike Tomlin is just, like the definition of a man's man, just like he shoots from the hip and he'll tell you like it is, but it's authentic. It's not in your face for the sake of being in your face. He is pure authenticity. It's why Pittsburgh Steelers fans and the organization as a whole absolutely love him. So they're going to be able to be like, when Mike Tomlin has a conversation with Russ and says, this is what it is, this is what we need from you, I think it's going to actually break through any of the barriers that Russ has, and you'll be able to go through. And I think Russ has been an absolute pro from day one when they ended up getting Justin Fields. When Justin Fields got the start, like he was still involved. And again, he does the corny stuff, wearing the jerseys and all of that. And he wants to feel connected and remind everyone, hey, I'm still pretty good. But you also got to understand that the numbers and the moments that Russ is having, as we can see, it's also one of those things where he's feeling that he wasn't been given the opportunity to show everyone. And that's a tough place to be in too. When you know what you're capable of doing, but you're not given the opportunity or platform to show what you can do. That's haunting. I feel that in many aspects of my life where it's like, if I'm just given the opportunity, if you just give me the chance, if you put me on FS1, if you put me on ESPN, or if you give me a shot with, I don't know, Sydney Sweeney or whatever the heck her name is. I will make it happen, man. I will make it happen. Give me a date with Margot Robbie and she will be my wife. She's like, put me in, coach. Let's go. And when you don't feel like you have that opportunity, it could be so frustrating because you're like, how can I get this opportunity? And it can eat at you. It can haunt you. And I think we were seeing that especially within the last couple of years with Russ. And so to see him have the humility to be able to do whatever he needed to do to be able to get back on the field and thrive and really remind everyone who he is, I think it's awesome. I really do. And I think it's great. But to answer the other question directly, has he redeemed his status as an elite quarterback? Despite everything that I just said, I'm going to say no, only because it's too short of a sample size. Now, again, I've been praising Russ. I've been saying that he reminded everyone who he is and how elite he can be. But it's too short of a window right now. Because let's say his numbers go back down, people will just say, that was a flash in the pan. They'll start to dissect, well, who did Russ really play? He played this team and that team. The way he truly redeems himself as his status as an elite quarterback is if he leads the Steelers into the playoffs, wins a big playoff game, right? Beats like the Ravens or the Chiefs. Like, it has to be substantial. He can't like beat the Miami Dolphins in the wild card round or something. Again, I don't know how the playoffs are obviously going to unfold, but it has to be like really substantial. And Russ has to be a reason for it. Because the way I look at it is let's say he's not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler anymore, which again, I'm not saying he will or he won't. It's like, will a team give him money? Will they say, I want Russ as our quarterback? And I think he would have to do more to really kind of prove, yo, I'm a great quarterback. I'm a top quarterback. Yeah, there were a couple years where things got a little rocky, but stop acting like those years before were a fluke and not the bad years. The bad years were a fluke. The bad years were a bad situation. I confess, I got in my own way a little bit as well. Then we had some injuries. It was a messy chain of events. But let's not pretend like I'm not Russ. Let's not pretend like I haven't been a top Hall of Fame caliber quarterback for the vast majority of my career. And in order to really prove that, it has to be more than just 3 regular season games. It just does. That's just my viewpoint. I think he's on that trajectory and he's on that path to being able to do it. But I think ultimately, if we're talking about the status of an elite quarterback, well, elite quarterbacks get evaluated based on what are they doing in the playoffs, right? Like, how are they winning a game? Is he throwing 80% completion percentage in the fourth quarter? Is he leading a drive to ice the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, right? Like, that's when those things really come to fruition. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers? Do you think he redeemed his status as an elite quarterback? And how do you feel about kind of his path that he's been on for these last couple of years? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.